All right, here we have exam number 4, last one before the final exam. The final exam, of course, we're behind, but the final exam will be comprehensive. We will add a few things after this exam, but not many. Some ecological and related topics, but nothing very difficult. And we'll add those on, and then that'll be the final exam. Will be a little bit of everything kind of put into one final exam. I'm going to throw in one last assignment, which will count as your project. Don't think of it as anything more than a regular homework assignment. I will just ask you to find a gene and investigate it. Tell me what kind of diseases it causes, that sort of thing. But it doesn't have to be a long project. It's just a regular assignment. And you'll throw that in as a last. It's something easy to bring up your grade. It does count more, so you need to do it, but I will put that out right after this review. So we are finishing up. We have actually less than a week because the final exam will be due on Sunday night. So realize you'll do this exam. We'll have a few lectures on some ecology topics, and then you'll take the final, which will be a review of everything. For this exam, list and describe the first question. Here is list the 4 parts of Darwin's theory of natural selection. That is out there all over the internet. There was one video where it talks about it specifically, and if you want more information, there are 4 specific parts of Darwin's theory. All I want you to do is list them and describe them. So maybe 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't mind if you do this one as more like an outline where you list the part, and then you go through and just say, kind of describe the theory. I would prefer you to give me, instead of a technical definition, I would prefer to give it to me in your words. But that's going to be what you need to do to get an A, is to give it to me in your words. But if you just put the technical definition that you find somewhere, you'll get credit for it. You might get C credit for it, depending on how you say it, but you'll get the passing credit for it. Now on number 2, you have a choice here. You can talk about Malthus or you can talk about Lamarck, and there are videos on both individuals. There are a ton of videos out there on the internet on these 2 guys. Lamarck, of course, is the guy related to epigenetics, which is number 3. But if you choose him, it's kind of like you're already talking about him in 3 for sure. Do not make these the same answer. If you choose, in other words, if you choose this one, be sure that you explain what his theory was. How did he think organisms changed? Maybe give a specific example. There is the classic giraffe story that is used. You can try that one. That's what I'm asking for. Give me who was he, and then what was his theory of how they changed. I want to know the mechanism. What made something change is a good example. And how would that mechanism work? Malthus, on the other hand, if you choose this one, Malthus was a priest. He worked for the clergy. And they asked him one day, find out why revenues keep going up and down. And the church was very much like a business at the time. This was in the 17th century. And they were wondering why sometimes they had a lot of money and sometimes they didn't. And of course, he studied the population and he realized, oh, the money goes up and down because people die. And then there are lots of new births and then they die again. And he invented the concept of the cycle, which is used everywhere in science and just everyday life. We understand there are cycles. Sometimes there are good times and bad times. A lot of his ideas were picked up by economists. But he, particularly some of the things he said, influenced Darwin. Darwin didn't agree with all of them, but it did influence him. And just as a hint, that might also have something to do with these up here. So both Lamarck and Malthus influenced the 4 parts of Darwin's theory. Moving on to 3, we talk about epigenetics a lot. I want you to kind of tell me what epigenetics are. Maybe a good way to do that is give an example. And I also want you to tell me how they relate to Lamarck's theory. Is there any way that epigenetics makes Lamarck correct? I want to make sure that you tell me how epigenetics might potentially show that Lamarck was correct, at least in some way. And of course, this would have been heresy just 10 years ago in biology to assume Lamarck was the guy who they used the example to make fun of. And oh, look how dumb people were back then. They thought it worked this way, and then they found this out. And wow, it's very humbling to a lot of biologists once we discovered epigenetics, and very important, by the way. What is the difference between natural selection and artificial selection? This should be an easy one. All right, this should be one paragraph. I think you can get this one very, very easily. The movie, I think, the long movie, the documentary, they talk about artificial selection in there. How is that different from natural selection? I think you can find it there. You can find it several places. If you understand what artificial selection is, just say, well, something causes this and something causes this. That's the difference, okay? That's as big a hint as I can give you. All right, now list the 4 things that scientists in the movie discovered that make us human. I'm talking about the 4 scientists at the end. There was a doctor who studied children, another one who studied muscles, another doctor that, was he a doctor? No, a scientist that did the thumb research, and then there was the lady who worked on the computers. So those 4 scientists, what did they discover? So I'm asking you, they discovered specific things. They discovered the things that make us different from something else. So list and describe the 4 things they discovered that make us human, essentially. All right, so you go on to the next one, number 6, and you have a choice. You can either tell me how punctuated equilibrium is related to transcription factors. That's in the movie. That's essentially much of what the movie was talking about. Or you can explain how embryo development supports the theory of evolution. Both of these can be found in the movie. In the movie, they didn't call transcription factors. In the movie, they call them either switches and you can think of those as both CPG islands and transcription factors, because they were trying to make it easy on people and not give them technical terms. And really, a lot of the technical terms hadn't been invented yet when that movie was made. But we would call them all the things that are in the promoter or before the promoter. Basically transcription factors and CPG islands. Those are what they're talking about in the movie, and those, of course, control their genes that control other genes. So you can either answer that one, it's related, it's kind of a theme through this course, or you can explain embryo development supports the theory of evolution. Both of these are in the movie. There are some other videos that kind of go with the embryo. If you understand that very well, that's a very short one. This one you should understand if you followed along in this course. Now, what did the finches tell Darwin about how evolution works? There are a couple of places you can find that. A couple of different videos talk about the finches. The long movie talks about the finches. So lots of places to get this one. The finches are a very famous story, and it's Darwin's story, actually. Much of his book involves him talking about these finches. All right, now, number 8, you get a choice. What is the difference between gradualism and punctuated equilibrium? Of course, what regions around the gene, going back up here, talking about 6A, are responsible. You just explain this. Or if you don't like that one, just tell me what genetic drift is. There's a video that talks about drift, and give an example. A is related to things we've talked about, very central to this course. B is actually the easy one. Oop, I see a typo there. Let's put a dot here. So what is drift? Give an example. All right, now number 9, I didn't ask you to do an entire Hardy-Weinberg problem. I just asked you to do the chi-square part. So all you have to do is I give you the numbers, 450 and 550 and 425 and 575. You know that both populations have 1,000 cows. Do your calculations here and tell me if there is natural selection. Use the same magic number above or below that we used in the homework. So you just go back and review that one, follow along on the video or videos, and use these numbers and tell me if there actually was natural selection going on. And then the last one, we have the last videos I gave you. One video was on comparing these terms and one video is on comparing these terms. Choose one of those two and compare and contrast them. What is the difference between these two, or what is the difference between these two? And that should do it. I will make this due, say, Friday night at midnight, maybe, or no, I better make it a day earlier than that, maybe Thursday night at midnight, which would go online as Friday at 12:30, but that'll still give us time to do the final. The final will just be like 1 or 2 questions from each test, usually the easier ones, and 1 or 2 questions that have to do with ecology, which I will, there'll be a couple of videos on. It'll be very direct, not a hard final, all right? Just, they should be questions that anybody who's passed the other exams should be able to pass these questions, and then like 2 new questions that have to do with ecology. And I'll probably even throw in some extra credit or something at the end of the final. The final will be due on Sunday, which would be like Monday night at 12:30 or something. I'll check on the exact dates. But I'm grading. Sorry I'm so far behind. I will, of course, have to get it in by the end of this semester. I'm just going to be very busy with no sleep. Please get the, because I have yours and another class. And work on this. It should be a relatively easy test if you've watched the videos.